Big changes coming out of the Manhattan DA's office. Alvin Bragg releasing a memo listing the offenses that he will no longer prosecute, including fare beating, marijuana misdemeanors, resisting arrest, trespassing, as well as prostitution, as long as they do not accompany other felonies. Reaction to that plan came swiftly. The Legal Aid Society praised the move, calling it a, quote, substantive first step to reform an office that is long resorted to making excessive bail requests and overcharging our clients, end quote. But law enforcement groups, well, they felt a bit differently, okay? The president of the Detectives Endowment Association, Paul DiGiacomo, said, quote, we have to take our city back, not to surrender to drug dealers and guns, end quote. And PBA President Pat Lynch expressed his concerns. Take a listen.
We have the DA saying, well, you do your work, but we won't do our work. It's supposed to work like gears. Each piece does its part. Well, now it's starting to fall apart.
And joining me now to discuss more is the Manhattan DA himself, Mr. Alvin Bragg. So good to see you, District Attorney Bragg. Thank you for being here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Great to see you. Happy to have a discussion today.
Yeah, this is an important discussion to have, right, in this new era. So why did you decide that your office would no longer prosecute the crimes that we listed there just a minute ago? And how will this bring more safety to the city?
Right. So I was elected to deliver safety and justice for all. You know, we made these plans clear, and Manhattanites responded resoundingly, electing me. Now, I've seen every side of the criminal justice system, as you know, and one thing is clear. The status quo is not working. Gun violence is on the rise, domestic violence is on the rise, sexual assault continues to be the most underreported violent crime. We've got work to do. And this plan is going to make us safer in and of itself, giving people the services they need. And it's going to clear the room to do the kind of work I've done throughout my career. Significant gun cases being at the top of the list.
Of course. Now, you heard some of the praise right there, right? But there was also some of that pushback, and I want to pay attention to that as well, because the DEA president, Paul DiGiacomo, said, quote, in Bragg's Manhattan, you can resist arrest, deal drugs, obstruct arrest, and even carry a gun and get away with it, end quote. So what do you say to that?
Well, I say it's wrong. I say you have to read the policy. I have prosecuted people who have assaulted law enforcement. You hit a law enforcement officer, you're going to be prosecuted. That's very serious. I have prosecuted armed robbery throughout my career. You go into a store with a gun and rob it, we're going to prosecute that. First thing I say is read the policy and also look at my career, my 20-plus year career of delivering safety. But what we're not going to do is if you are suffering from addiction or mental health and you commit a low-level crime, we're going to get you the services you need. We're not going to incarcerate you. And they go hand in hand. That's going to create the bandwidth so we can focus more on the guns. It's more on domestic violence. It's going to make us safer.
So the police officers union, they have requested to sit down with you, right, to figure out how to move forward with this kind of policing. Is that meeting or conversation something that you would like to do?
Of course. I spoke with the head of the police union earlier this week. The way I've governed. I mean, one thing that voters know, I have a track record. I've been in government, and I've got a big tent of discussion. So all the stakeholders, I'm always happy to talk about this, have robust dialogue, put our ideas together. That's how we get to a better democracy. I welcome the discussion with all the stakeholders. So was there some common ground then, if you did speak to him already, because he was looking for some of those services to help with the plan, the mental health services and so on that he says do not exist yet? Right. Well, one thing I'm not going to do, I'm not going to govern through the media, with all due respect. We've had the conversations, they'll be ongoing. I think there's a shared commitment to getting services under certain conditions, and we will work on that jointly. And on matters where we disagree, we will do that respectfully and continue to have lines of discussion open.
Yeah, and I want to talk more specifically about some of the details. I did read the policy, and I want to talk about the crime surrounding guns. Now, we know, Mr. Bragg, that gun violence is a serious problem in this city. You and I have talked about it when you were on the campaign trail. But in one instance, when you were right here on this show, you said that armed robbers who use guns or other deadly weapons to stick up stores and other businesses will be prosecuted for petty larceny, a misdemeanor, provided no victims were seriously injured and that there is no risk or physical harm to anybody. So what's the message to the criminal?
Well, that's not what the policy says, right? I mean, and I know guns probably as well as or better than anyone else in the city, right? I've had a semi-automatic weapon pointed at my head. I've had a homicide victim on my doorstep. I had a shooting in front of my home just 2 months ago. The policy is very, very clear. If you go into a store with a gun to rob someone, that's going to be prosecuted. You don't have to take my word for it. I've prosecuted that kind of cases before. So the policy is crystal clear on that.
Prosecuted for what? Is it a petty larceny or no?
No, it's not a petty larceny. If you walk in with a gun and stick a store up, that's a robbery.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things, I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak directly with you, is there's been so much misinformation. There are people that do not want this to succeed. There are people vested in the status quo. They're taking the policy and they're running with it to fearmonger for their own agendas. I am focused like a laser on safety and fairness, keeping Manhattan safe. And so anyone who wants to know about the policy, I'm open to talk about it day or night. Because what you just said is it's been spread by misinformation by people who are not engaging in good faith dialogue. If you go into a store with a gun to rob it, that is a robbery.
Yeah.
I have prosecuted that before. I will prosecute it again. That will make us safe.
So where do you think, and I'm glad we're clarifying this, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I hear the passion in your voice. Where do you think some of the misunderstanding of the policy is coming from?
Well, look, I think there are those who don't want this to succeed. And I don't know what their motives are. But we've seen people who I know are cogent and analytical decide to be a fear-mongering, decide to misreport. And so that's why I'm here to correct the record, and I'll correct the record with anyone who wants to have the conversation.
So if you notice there are repeat offenders, right? Because a lot of the conversation around bail reform and conversations with the previous police commissioner that I've had ongoing is that some people are arrested for a specific crime and they're back on the street the next day. Do you see this initiative or this policy is changing that?
Definitely. That's what this is all about. I'm so glad you asked that question, right? We've seen time and time again of people who, let's say on their sixth arrest, something happens. And I'm going to say, what happens to the first five? Well, what happens to the first five is exactly what you just said. They go to Rikers, they cycle through, they come back, often to the same block, often to my neighborhood. What we're saying now is rather than have this status quo that apparently some people are vested in, we're going to get them services the first time, the second time, if there's a second time, and we're going to deliver safety through that so that we can clear the brush and focus on the guns, focus on domestic violence, focus on sex crimes. That's what it's all about.
We did speak to some business owners and some residents who were fearful about their own safety, right? And I know you clarified some of the things about petty larceny versus a robbery. We spoke to a few business owners in the area of Harlem who said they experience already high levels of crime. What's your message to them?
So my message first, and this is why it's so critical, the function that you serve and the rest of the media, is a lot of that response is to misinformation.
Right.
So that's why I'm out clarifying, making clear, so that we can address it head on. And I'm going to be meeting with shopkeepers. I'm doing a lot of community events to explain exactly what it is. And what it is reflection of the conversation I've had for 2 years about what Manhattanites want, about what shopkeepers want, about what residents want. So look, I was very clear. Someone was joking and said, we finally have someone who was elected and did exactly what he said he was going to do. We put this plan out 6 months ago. It's been in writing on our website. So it's no surprise, and it's a product of my discussions with our neighbors.
Yeah, and this is this conversation you and I have had many times, and I have to say, you're already week one into being officially the district attorney, and you're making yourself ready available, which we appreciate. I do want to get into this because part of your memo included a pledge for some new initiatives and policies on guns and hate crimes as well. Any chance we can get an early look at that, what that may include? You want to make some news this morning?
So what I can tell you is that, and I'll start with guns, it's at the top of the list. We've been doing a lot of time. I've been spending a lot of time with our law enforcement partners. It won't surprise you because it's going to be, again, much like with the policy this week, consistent with what I talked about when I ran. We talked a lot about gun tracing. We are going to invest in gun tracing, partner with our law enforcement officials to look at how the guns are flooding into Manhattan, looking at where they come from, and we're going to cut sources of supply off. I've always said, if you follow the contraband, here are guns, and you follow the money, they will take you to the most culpable people. You hold those folks accountable. That's how you get enduring safety. So that's both a look back at what I said and a preview of what's to come.
All right, understood. And I'm looking forward to having some more conversations without you when you release those plans. Come on back, okay?
I'll be glad to. Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Bragg, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next time.